Hello there, good evening, and welcome to Beard Blather 134. Something about the bizarre futility of our times. We're going to figure that one out in the next 2 hours if we and you survive them. This is Saul Montes-Bradley, the largest human repository of useless information, still from Florida, awaiting the hurricane that is not going to hit my area regardless of those idiots buying toilet paper. And right there, Thomas Wictor, the only living expert in World War I flamethrowers, and so many more things from California, the land of Governor Gruesome and extreme stupidity. Did I get that right?
You did.
Okay.
Right.
By the way, one of the quads sent me, remember that flamethrower that I showed you once that I intended to buy for the driveway?
Yes.
It's now on sale for $500. The only problem is it has a 0.35 gallon gas tank. And that isn't nearly enough, men, for what I want to do with that thing.
Yeah, there used to be one. Remember when Elon Musk started selling what he said was a flamethrower?
Yes.
That's actually a Bunsen burner. It's not a flamethrower at
Yeah.
all. And somebody else came out with an actual military grade thrower with a 50-foot range, and it's legal in every state except for California and I think Missouri. But that's a real flamethrower, and it uses essentially napalm. So don't
Nice.
but it's a flamethrower. It's a real one, and that was all the rage. I haven't heard much about it in a while, but that was all the rage for a while.
Well, I hope I can find a real one, because, I can use it on my driveway and have it on reserve in case it becomes necessary for some deep state cleaning.
Well, there was a Leonardo DiCaprio, Quentin Tarantino, Brad Pitt movie called Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and it's a retelling of the Manson family murders, but these two guys prevented the murders, and DiCaprio had been in a war movie where he used a flamethrower, and they just gave him the flamethrower, so he kept it in his garage, fully loaded with napalm and
Holy crap!
The igniters already. And so when the Manson people went to the wrong house and tried to kill him, he came out with his flamethrower. And it's a deeply silly notion, but visually it's quite impressive because the person he's burning is in the swimming pool, but she's not smart enough to go down underwater. So she's standing in the swimming pool going, ah, as her head is being fried with a flamethrower.
Oh, well, it's Hollywood. What can I tell you? It's like in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. We're running away from the asshole with a chainsaw pointing at your asshole. And we need to hide. Where do we hide? How about the tool shed in the middle of nowhere?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Right? It's like, what could be wrong with a tool shed in the middle of nowhere? They found out.
They go into the house. The house has bones and corpses everywhere. So the guy goes deeper into the house, kind of going, I wonder what this is. And then the door swings open, and Leatherface hits him with one of those pig stunning mallets,
Yes.
And, the complaint that everybody has about horror movies is that in order to advance the plot, you require the characters to do things that are so stupid that no human being would ever actually do them. Like my favorite,
no.
When they're,
I'm telling you right now, if I ever have an asshole with a chainsaw pointing at my ass, I'm gonna be the first man to reach the North Pole running.
Oh yeah, no, the thing that I like about horror movies is they always split up. It's like you know, they've never heard of the concept of safety in numbers. So
no. Divide et impera is totally strange to them.
sure.
It's like, oh God, they're looking for us. What do we do? Well, you go over there, I go over there, you go over yonder, and we're all by ourselves waiting for the son of a bitch to pick us one by one.
Well, you know what's really funny? It just hit me. We just started talking about all this stuff. It totally ties in with tonight's show because essentially Putin and the Democrats are doing everything that people in horror movies do. They're
Yes.
they're being utterly suicidal on every possible level, and you know, normal human beings would never do that. They would never. You know, I've been listening to the mobilization plans that the Russians are putting out. It's a nightmare. It's exactly like what you and I were saying. I don't know if we were talking privately or whatever, but they don't have the mobilization infrastructure. So this cannot be done.
No. Now they're talking about giving these poor fuckers, which are I've seen a gazillion videos. Some of them are funnier than others. None is totally serious. Of these draftees showing up at a bus depot, totally pissed. I mean, drunk beyond their senses. The best I saw was a guy. His pants were falling off all the time, and the other two guys who were just as drunk as him, but had remembered to wear a belt, were saying, "Don't show your ass for Russia. The Ukrainians are going to see your ass," and trying to pull his pants up, and all three fall to the ground. And I'm thinking, yeah, that. And then I realized that these idiots are going to get a 1 week full training, 2 weeks sleeping in a tent in the middle of the forest, and then they're going to drop their asses in the front.
Well,
Cannon fodder.
I saw an interview with a retired 4-star general, and he said that his job was to oversee the yearly American Army recruitment program. He said that the U.S. recruits about 70,000. The U.S. Army recruits about 70,000 men and women per year, and he said,
Yep.
That's the absolute limit that we can do. And our people, first they get basic training, then they get advanced individual training. And he said they're not ready for joining their units for at least a year, and then
Yep.
they have to carefully choose units that have an overwhelming majority of experienced soldiers, so that the newbies will go into a situation full of veterans. And he said that the Russians, they claim 300,000. It's going to be 500,000 easily. They're going to give them 2 weeks training, and then they're going to put them in units that are 100% new recruits with no veterans and basically no commanders. They're going to be in units with no commanders because they don't have any commanders anymore. All their commanders are dead. And he said this is going to be a catastrophe. Nothing like this has ever happened in the modern era. And
No.
and
yeah,
I was going to say, and the whole time they'll have been in the military, they'll be sleeping on concrete. They'll be sleeping out in fields. They don't have tents. They don't have uniforms. They're not going to.
No winter clothing.
They have no ammunition, so they're not going to be allowed to fire. He said that the new Russian tank crews will fire one live round before they're sent to Ukraine. One.
Yeah. You know, they had to save the munition. How the fuck do the Russians expect to send food, fuel, and ammo to these people?
They just canned the head of supplies. The logistics guy was just cashiered. So now they don't have someone in charge of logistics because they haven't replaced it.
Yeah, and frankly, from the very start of this fiasco, they've shown their total inability for logistics. I mean, wars are won on the basis of logistics. He who can bring the shit to the front wins. The Russians can't.
Napoleon
They're
said
out of fuel.
Napoleon said an army marches on its stomach. And
Yes.
if there's nothing in their stomachs, then they won't march anymore.
And I think, sometimes we exaggerate. We've had practically 5-star restaurants in the front lines on occasion, because I've heard stories from Iraq and Afghanistan of forward base arrangements with more or less a la carte menus. And you say, whoa, I mean, these people took an army marches on its stomach to a new level. And the Russians have to pretend they are St. John the Baptist and try to find locusts and roots to it.
There's a YouTube channel where a man buys, opens, prepares, and eats rations, meals ready to eat, MREs from all over the world. And the worst he's ever had is the Russian. And he said, he showed it, North Korean rations are much better than Russian rations. The North Korean rations come in plain bags and cardboard boxes, but they're delicious, they're nutritious, they're filling. And he said the worst so far have been Russian.
Well, you have to feed all of those parasites,
Exactly, yeah.
And I don't mean the soldiers.
No, I wouldn't eat a North Korean ration if you paid me.
No. But it's insane. Red, White, and Blue Dude says Napoleon took over the ragtag French army in Italy that was sorely lacking in discipline and supplies and whipped them into shape. Well, I don't know. We can talk about a lot of things that happened 300 years ago. Von Steuben did a pretty decent work in the U.S. Back when it wasn't the U.S. yet. But this is different. Today you cannot do it. Omar Bradley, not a direct relative of mine, was a genius in his time for his ability to pick up boys who had never seen a weapon and turn them into soldiers in 3 months. And his ability to do that, to train people in a fucking hurry and bring them to the front, was his hallmark. It was the thing that earned him fame within the American army in World War II. Not just the American army. You could, in theory, if you had the right plans, if you have the right resources, in 3 to 4 months, have a fight-ready soldier who, of course, is still going to stumble quite a bit before they gain footing, because it is one thing to train. It's a different one to have an actual enemy shooting at your fucking face. But the Russians are not even trying. It's like the army in Argentina. Here are 3 rounds. You're going to shoot it 3 times, and the next time you see a weapon, you're going to be in the Falklands or some shit like that.
Well, in World War II, the Germans and the Soviets, the Nazis and the Soviets, had a non-aggression pact, which allowed both of them to carve up Poland. And then in
the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact.
Yes. And afterwards, in 1941, Hitler launched a surprise invasion of the Soviet Union, which everybody told him, don't do it. But he did it. And in order to motivate his men to win, he didn't give them winter clothing. And the Germans cut through Russia like a hot knife through butter because Stalin was the commander-in-chief and he was paralyzed. He didn't know what to do. And so when the Germans got to Stalingrad, each pair of soldiers was issued one rifle, and they were told, when the man next to you is killed, pick up his rifles. And that was how they fought. And they had a line of what were known as political commissars with machine guns who would machine gun any man who turned his back to the enemy. So that is a very Russian way of fighting wars.
Yes.
When the Russians,
apparently the only way they know.
Exactly. When the Soviets took Berlin, the Field Marshal Zhukov had absolutely no regard for the lives of his own men. They were simply machines. And so the Soviets lost 300,000 dead taking Berlin. And, that was a great victory. Zhukov didn't care. He slept soundly every night. Putin doesn't care about his men, not in the slightest.
Nope, not at all. And you could almost feel that in that half an hour diatribe where he's speaking frankly like somebody who is bit. Well, we went there like this, and you say, what the fuck is this? The great commander calling troops to victory, or a guy resigned to his fate?
Yeah. And the funny thing is that everything he accused Ukraine of doing is what the Russians are doing. And down to the Nazism. There are no Nazis in Ukraine. The Azov regiment began as a militia, but it's now a regiment. And the Ukrainians have done a pretty good job of purging undesirable elements. The Russians have soldiers who have old school Nazi eagles with swastikas, World War II. I mean, copied straight out of the history books. Russians are the only people with Nazis in this fight.
Yeah, not that I disagree with you. I don't. I believe you're absolutely correct in this statement. But I would venture to say there are more Nazis in the German army than in the Russian and Ukrainian armies put together. I think it was a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, they had to disband a battalion of special operations because they had a Hitler cult in Germany. Of course, they disbanded the regiment. Is not an official position of the German government or anything of the sort, but the problem exists. Are there Nazis in Ukraine? I presume there are. There are a lot of people in Ukraine whose grandparents fought for the Nazis, volunteer for the Nazis out of hatred for Russians. Are there Nazis in Russia? You bet there are. And sometimes I do have trouble distinguishing the communist and the Nazi. It's maybe I'm too hung up on the Ribbentrop-Molotov agreement, but I don't see much difference.
No.
Between the two. Now, those who pick up on it is the same thing, as those your old friend, remember Mike Rothschild, the little fuck. They published in public radio an interview that he did with a little shit of unknown name to me, where he is talking about how mainstream Republicans have adopted the ideas of Q Republicans. Okay, and what he goes on to say is completely false, but no different than those who claim that Zelensky is a Nazi because there are two Nazis somewhere near Donetsk. Just because there are a couple of nuts out there doesn't mean the rest are. Just because the couple of nuts proclaim themselves to be the vanguard of the proletariat or the vanguard of the Republican Party, or the vanguard of the Democratic Party, doesn't mean they are. Just because the squad proclaims to be the leading edge of the Democratic Party doesn't mean Democrats agree with the squad. As a matter of fact, I would propose to you that 70-80% of Democrats can stand the bitches any more than you or I can.
Well, also the Democrats are the people who are constantly screeching that you can't judge an entire group by the actions of a few individuals. So,
well, remember that we're talking about collectivist assholes.
Apparently, that applies to everyone except for Republicans. That if you have,
of course,
one bad Republican, it means that all Republicans are bad. And this is all fine and dandy. It's causing them to auger in like an airplane with no wings. The Democrats are headed right into the ground, and I couldn't be happier.
Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah, I encourage them to keep up with this stuff because it's blowing up in their faces.
Yes. They're let me see. Ray, what I'm blue dude here is had a double question. One goes right to what you said. The first one is, what is a Q Republican? My answer, an oxymoron. You see, Q-tards are, by definition, collectivists. Just read what they say. And Republicans are individualists. Now, a guy who claims to be a Republican and is a collectivist is a very confused individual in desperate need for psychiatric treatment. And the other one is the squad was just in Somerville for an event hosted by Kendi. Yes, they were. The most ridiculous thing, I think all 20 of them went there.
Okay, say it again. Who is where? What?
Oh,
my brother was walking through and making. I was watching my brother hearing something. Go ahead.
The squad just had an event in Somerville, Massachusetts, with Kendi as a kind of like what's the word I'm looking for? Master of ceremonies, and you had all of the idiots. Baldy, the wonder idiot from Massachusetts, Ilan Omar, Ocasio-Cortez, Rashida Tlaib, all of these idiots were there. And, it came and went. And even in Massachusetts, which is, and by the way, this Kendi asshole is a professor of something irrelevant at the Boston College. Nobody went there. Crickets. Nobody gives a shit. Not even Democrats like these assholes. And they are the Q-tards of the Democratic Party.
See, this is the thing that I mean, I tried to make peace with the Q people, and it's not really possible. But it's all about, I mean, what's that statement? As one, so go all, or whatever.
Oh, where we go one, we go all, say the idiots. Which is, by the way, something reminiscent of Alexander Dumas and the Three Musketeers. One for all and all for one kind of shit. And it is all the shit. They didn't invent it. And of course, there are references to that phrase, which I've been hearing for 50 years. And now it appears that the only people who can say it must be Q-tards.
Well, I mean, the what I didn't like about it was that it fostered I mean, okay, they did say that they researched things, but they researched them only from approved sources. And a heck of a lot of the stuff that was being put out there is patently false. We saw Q um, telling us time and time and time and time again that certain things were about to happen this weekend. They never happened. No explanation was given. We had the famous gun battle between the Green Berets and the CIA and
Yeah. By the way, if we're going deeper into this subject, I started this in both
oh
Odysee and YouBoob,
yeah,
and so far so good. Hey, YouBoob assholes! See, we don't like you. Fuck you. Uh, Incidentally, it wasn't Boston College. I was corrected on the chat, and it's right. The correction is right. It's Boston University, and this idiot is where the hell? Boston University. Oh, he's the head of anti-racist research. I'm not kidding you. They actually have such a department. And with that, before I say something that I might regret in the land of YouBoob, to all of those who are watching us in YouBoob, where we still have a considerable number of followers, please come and join us in Odysee, because I don't want to be looking over my shoulder all the time, and that's where we're going to cut it off now. You have the links down there, both to open your account in Odysee and to link, if you don't want to open an account yet, to link directly to this program so you may continue watching in Odysee, and I'll see you there. So bye-bye, YouBoob. Thank you for your loyalty, guys. Come and spend more time with us in Odysee. And that said,